Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. Today, I wanted to talk about Christmas. I know it's only a month away. Well, actually, by the time this airs, it'll be 3 weeks away, and it's a time of year that can create great joy, but also great stress. I look at my 9-year-old daughter, and life is pretty cruisy for her, so she loves it. She's all the trees up. We're listening to Christmas carols already. It's just for her, it's just fun. And I don't think she could even conceive another way that it could be experienced by anyone. But I'm aware of the fact that it's a time where, there's a hefty financial load for a lot of people. If you're in a small business, then you're also going to be perhaps winding down a bit, which means lower income over that period, which also adds to the financial load. There's a lot. And then, of course, there's family dramas. There's, loneliness. There's all sorts of things. It all tends to kind of like wash over us at Christmas. So I highly encourage you to reach out to those close to you. If you can lean on someone, then that emotionally is at least a little bit of a help. This episode, though, will focus more on the financial side of things and the ideas that I can give you in relation to presents, because I've done lots of different things over time, and I've experienced lots of different things too. I used to work in a corporate environment where we always did Secret Santa. And the dollar values increased over time because inflation and all of that. But it's an interesting kind of concept, and I know you can do Secret Santa in a family as well. So that's one of the things we'll explore. But generally, it's also to do with, it's not just presents, but it's also food. Whether you're hosting Christmas or contributing to a Christmas sort of meal, there's lots of different ways. So in terms of presents, I'll just go through a few options. One is Secret Santa. Another is giving money. And I'll go into a little bit more about that. But that's one option, just giving money and giving an experience rather than stuff. And also then just giving the gift of your time, whether it's babysitting or anyway, we'll get into the detail of that, but your time. So there's sort of four gift ideas. You can also buy secondhand as well. So that's another one too, which is a little bit difficult to kind of get your head around for gift giving as such, but it's a possibility. Then comes the food factor. It really depends on how many people you're feeding. If you're feeding quite a lot of people, then I would highly recommend checking out Costco. I started to shop at Costco as a bit of an experiment. It was probably, I'm trying to think, it was 1 or 2 years ago now, but I absolutely love it. Their products are actually really good. They have a lot of organic things. They have produce and products that you just can't actually find anywhere else as well because they're imported. But they also support a lot of local businesses too. There's a couple of Byron Bay businesses that I see in there, which is really nice. And Aldi. I've rediscovered Aldi because their stock levels are now a bit more reliable. So Costco and Aldi are two options for Christmas, and also making things, getting people to, the whole potluck kind of concept. So now that I'm talking about the food, I'll delve into the food, then I'll talk about presents. But so if you're feeding people en masse and you just want to buy pre-made things and chuck it in the oven or chuck it on the barbecue or whatever, then Costco is actually a really good option for that. They've got you've got to have lots of freezer space though. That's one thing that I'm constantly running out of freezer space because I come back from Costco with like 1.2 kilo bags of organic frozen blueberries and another of strawberries and frozen mangoes, and I make lots of smoothies in the summertime, so lots of frozen fruit. But then if I've got a box of, canapes or something, that's another thing. So you got to have a lot of freezer space for that, though. That's the only thing. But you can buy baked goods and it is bulk, so you are buying quite a bit. So you've got to make sure that you're actually going to use it. But it's a less expensive per person way to do it if you can manage it. And then of course Aldi's got lots of great products as well, but in smaller quantities, but then also not the same variety too. So if eating organic is important to you, then they don't actually have as much anymore as they used to. But Costco do. So there's one thing. Looking at your at some recipes and just kind of coordinating. So we do a big celebration on Christmas Eve, and everybody brings something. And so I coordinate who brings what. So I was like, okay. And I also know the sorts of things that people like to cook and also that they're good at cooking. So I was like, all right, you're really good at making coleslaw. So you can make the coleslaw. You're really great at making lasagna. You make the lasagna. My husband likes making beef brisket because he has a slow cooker that he hardly ever gets to use because I'm vegetarian. So he cracks that out for it as well. And it's something he enjoys doing. So it's also trying to find the joy in the work, which can sometimes feel a little bit difficult, but just take a moment to plan it. And once you've planned it out, it becomes a lot more easy to manage. I actually use Trello to manage Christmas between presents and because we have a couple of celebrations. So we've got a St. Nicholas or a Krampus celebration on the eve of the 5th of December. So there's a small nucleus family celebration then, and then there's the bigger Christmas Eve celebration. And there's my daughter has been making presents for her teachers and she's been making some presents for her friends. So I've got to kind of keep track of all these things. So I manage it all inside Trello. I only use the free version as well, so it works really well. But you can do the same thing with food too to make sure that you've kind of got a nice variety of things that everybody's dietary requirements are taken care of, and that everything is sort of working smoothly, and that you can keep the budget a little bit down as well. So when you look holistically at what you're putting together, so that's the food side of it. Obviously, if you're going to buy things like seafood, their prices get spiked at around Christmas because it's a demand time of year and everybody wants it, especially in like in Southern Hemisphere where summer is hot. Sorry, Christmas is hot, summer. So now to the presents. This is always an interesting one. So I've varied how I've done it in the past. I've had between myself, my mum, my dad, friends. My daughter has received lots of presents, and it's actually too overwhelming. I remember one year she didn't finish opening her presents until February because it was just too much. She just lost interest. It was more like a open, yeah, next one, open, yeah. It became like a production line. She didn't actually really appreciate what was actually inside the wrapping. So last year, I trialed out doing some presents and some cash, and it worked so well that for her birthday this year, she just wanted money. And I still bought her one thing so she could unwrap something on her birthday in the morning. But the money was actually really good because what we did then is that the day after, and this is why I know some people don't like giving money because they think it doesn't have any thought behind it. But what it did do then is allow us to have a really nice shopping experience. So the next day, from her birthday, and we'll probably do something similar with Christmas as well, is we got to go shopping together. We hung out, we had lunch. I watched her become extremely discerning around what she chose because it was now like her money. It wasn't just something someone else had kind of given her, or even if it was presents that she'd asked for that she got, she would just randomly ask and ask and ask and not realize the volume that it created. But when she had to like spend the money and then was gathering the bags, she was so much more thoughtful about what she was buying. Did she really want this or did she want that? What was going to bring her more joy and longevity of fun as well? So it was really, really fascinating from a psychological perspective to see that happen. So I'm going to do something similar this year. Again, she'll have a couple of presents to open on Christmas Eve, but then she'll just get some money and then we can go do some shopping in the Boxing Day sales as well. So she can maximize what she gets too. So that's so money. The Secret Santa option, in a work environment, I quite liked it. Inside a family, I mean, if you've got a gazillion people to buy for, then it might work. But I found it really limited what you could get someone as well. Like if you had an idea for someone else, but you didn't get that person, you got this person, it sort of takes a little bit of the fun out of it. It kind of makes it a bit more transactional. Like, well, I got to give someone a present, so I don't really care who. I'll just whichever name comes out of the hat, I'll buy them the present. Again, it really depends on if that's what works for you and your family. I tend to see things and go, like even just recently, my husband doesn't listen to my podcast, so I can share this with you, but he likes herbal tea. And I saw that one of the brands that he really likes did like an advent calendar for tea. And I was going, oh, that would be really cool for like a smaller present. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. But if I hadn't picked his name out of the hat, that idea would just kind of get lost. I'd be like, oh, I just got to now buy something for someone. But again, so it's a really you just have to do what works for you. But I'm not as big a fan of the Secret Santa concept, but you can do it in different ways as well. Experiences is another thing. So if there's something that you know that your family member really wants to experience, and if the price tag's a little bit higher, a few of you can pool funds to get that experience as well. Like it might be, driving on a racetrack or going hot air ballooning or scuba diving or whatever it happens to be. And it has that whole, oh, this is really exciting. It's something I really wanted to always do that I would never have bought for myself, which is the way I define a gift, is something that you can get for somebody that they probably wouldn't buy for themselves or something that they might not have even thought of. I remember probably one of the most thoughtful gifts I've ever received, and I'll have to tell you the backstory because it won't make sense if I just tell you what it is, was a snufter. And that's for like putting out candles. I don't tend to put candles on as much anymore since my daughter was born. I don't know, the impending toddler knocking or someone tired knocking it over and setting the house alight probably has something to do with it. But I used to have candles a lot. And I remember one day I went into work and I had this like red mark around my mouth. And my colleague's like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "I blew out a candle and I must have blown it too hard, and the hot wax flung back up at my face and has like burned." And it was such a stupid thing. Well, the next time there was a gift, I think it was Christmas or something, she gave me a snufter. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that is such a thoughtful gift. I would never have sort of thought about that. So whether it's an experience or a gift, it's nice to have something that you know is really sort of meant for that person. The other kind of gift that you can give is, and that is very low cost, is your time. Can you offer babysitting to someone or like make them some meals or like in my well, it's more a present, but if anything you can think of where you can lighten the load, especially if you see somebody who's busy, has lots of kids, is struggling or is trying to juggle so much, just give them an afternoon off or maybe some movie tickets to go with you and you can take them out for coffee or just do something where you're giving of your time but it's actually helping another person, so you kind of like give them a voucher in a way. And it's actually really nice to be able to offer that if you can. I know when my daughter was little, one of the friend came over one time, and this wasn't in the same vein, but it's a similar concept. She's like, "What can I do?" And I was like, "Hold the baby while I go have a shower and go to the toilet without a screaming child." So it's just even just the act of that was just so incredibly powerful and valuable for me. So just have a think about how you can serve someone in your life with your time so that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money on a gift, but it's still immensely valuable to them. So there are a couple of ideas for how to keep the cost of food and presents down this Christmas and to try and really reconnect with what this time of year is about rather than the money making machine that it has become. And it's an important message for children. Like my daughter has really connected in with, well, what are some traditions? We do more or less the same thing every year. So the traditions have become pretty obvious. But talking about why it's important and what we're actually trying to do here. It's not just about giving lots of presents or receiving lots of presents or having an advent calendar with chocolate in it, although those things are nice. It's about bringing people together, about considering anyone who's less fortunate, about giving where we can and just helping out and involving people. I remember, obviously during the pandemic, it was difficult for people to get to their family because they couldn't travel. So our Christmas Eve celebrations got bigger because we're like, well, come to ours, join our celebration, become our family for a night. And it's such a nice feeling to be able to do that. So just remember the spirit of Christmas and try not to let the stress and overwhelm and the financial burden weigh you down, and get a bit creative with where you're at and what you can do. And bring your family on board. If you need to explain it to your children, they will want to help. Children generally are intrinsically kind, I believe, and they will want to be able to help you. And if you allow them to help you, it will also bring you closer. So, with that message in November, even though it is a little bit early, but Christmas isn't that far away, I hope you have a wonderful holiday period. I will probably do one or two more episodes before the end of the year. I'll see how I go once school finishes. So, I hope to give you another episode. I would like to do one a little bit on planning because I do it a little bit differently. So, I'll share a few of my tips for doing that in maybe a week or two. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week and I will hear you next episode.